Hey guys, Cam here, and it's Thursday, which means it's time for us to look back into the past at some of the greatest phones that we have ever had. And this week, thanks to a vote on our Instagram page, you all decided that it should be this. The Nokia 3310, which came out in the year 2000. The same year we all thought that Pokemon was the best thing ever, and the Baha Men's Who Let the Dogs Out was the best song in the world. Now, whenever you mention this phone to anybody who remembers it, the first word to come out of their mouth is Snake. So we should probably start there. Snake was one of those games that was probably more addictive than Flappy Bird. Now let's get one thing straight before we do go into this. It wasn't Snake. It was Snake 2, the sequel. It was better than the first one because it featured mazes, you could speed up the level to make the snake faster, and the snake could actually go through the walls on the top and the bottom and on the sides of the screen. And also, once you ate a few of the little fruit or pixel dots or whatever they were, you got the chance to up your points by swallowing an insect. Now, for those of you who have never played Snake, it's essentially a game where you guide a snake to eat some fruit on a screen on this phone using keys 2, 4, 6 and 8, and if you were really nerdy like me, you had a joystick that clipped onto the top of your Nokia phone so that you could do it without pressing any buttons. And obviously the challenge was to see who could fill up the screen with Snake and who could get the highest score, and I don't think I ever got that high, but still I used to get home from school and play this game constantly. And when I wasn't playing this game, I was playing Space Impact, also loaded onto the Nokia 3310. You essentially just shoot loads of spacecraft and aliens. Sometimes giant big prawn shaped things. It had bosses and it was like a 2D black and white platform game. It was cool. The second thing that most people would talk about when you mention the 3310 is the fact that it was indestructible. If you dropped this, you were more than likely damaged whatever you dropped it onto than the actual phone. Actually, in fact, if you did drop it, the case would probably break and come off, but that was fine because you could just buy a new one and replace it because this thing had interchangeable covers. You could have a Spider-Man cover if you wanted to, or have one with like a slidey down flap on the top of the keys. You could do almost anything you wanted, and plenty of accessory makers were making covers front and back for this phone, so there was no shortage in options for customization. Now, in terms of design, the 3310 wasn't the smallest phone around in its era. There were other phones that were smaller. At the same time, there were also phones that were far more advanced than this, but still this became the phone that almost everybody owned or wanted to own. It was lightweight, it felt good in hand, the keypad was very well spaced apart and felt good when you were typing. And because the user interface was really simple, that it wasn't really a struggle to use. You had a very simple menu, you could just scroll through using the selection of buttons on the top, and that was that. It wasn't difficult. You also had a 12-button alphanumerical keyboard, which you could use for texting the old-fashioned way, or you had predictive text if you wanted to. But this was also packed with a few really cool features, one of which that I like to use quite often was chat. It was different to other text messaging in that you had a conversation thread going all at once. When you sent a text or received one, it would appear above the last one, and it sort of looked quite futuristic. And remember, at the time, everybody was using MSN Messenger or AOL Instant Messenger. And it was kind of comparable to that in the way it looked, but the bad thing about it was that once you exited a chat, it was gone. You couldn't go back. You had to start a new chat. One of the other cool features it had was voice tags. Now, not exactly like Siri or Google Now or voice actions. It was pretty basic, but it was still cool. For any of your contacts, you could create a voice tag. You would record it, and then when you went to use it, you press and hold the menu button and you speak whichever voice tag that you've already pre-recorded, and it would recognize it and you could phone that person straight away. It worked most of the time unless you had a really complicated name. This phone also came equipped with the option to install screensavers. They were really basic monochromatic images that you could have appear on the home screen. After a certain time, you could set it to go off after 5 seconds or 20 seconds or a minute. You could choose whatever you wanted. Now, obviously, there was no color and there was no animation, but it was quite a nice little customization tool to have on there, and you could even pay to download premium ones from other places so you could have a Superman logo on there if you wanted to. Another hardware feature worth mentioning is that it had an internal antenna. Unlike a lot of phones which were around at the time or slightly before, Nokia went with the internal one on this, as it did with the previous generation and most other phones that came after it. You didn't have an annoying black thing sticking out the top, it was just all built into the phone. And what was also really cool was that the power button was on the top, but it wasn't actually a button that stuck out. You just kind of press the power logo on here, and when you press it, you can either switch the phone off or on, or you can change profile. Now, when you change profile, you can change ringtones, but obviously everybody had the Nokia ringtone, the most famous ringtone ever made. And all these features added together, the way the phone was built, the quality of design, the way it felt in hand, the ease of use, the games, the features, everything combined to make a phone that everybody found really hard to resist. It was a fantastic phone and everybody wanted one, which is why the Nokia 3310 will always be one of those phones that everybody from that era will remember, as surely as they'll remember Pokemon. They will remember the Nokia 3310. I've been Cam, I'm at PhoneDog_Cam on Twitter. You can ask me anything you want. If you have any other suggestions for retro phones you would like us to review, please use the comments section below. Get me on Twitter. I'll see you again soon.